right?
You have your agenda.
It's your turn.
We have the agenda, we have the, do we? Have the agenda here in the packet.
Should be the first time.
Oh, I should do what the agenda says. Okay, I can do that.
Here you go. Show this.
This is it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I have it. I just didn't open my packet while I was sitting here all that time. No, but it doesn't say on here that I should call it to order. So we're gonna start the meeting
Yes.
and do the
Roll
roll.
call. Chin, Hayden,
Here.
Lloyd,
Here.
McDougal, Moss.
Here.
Okay, so the meeting is open. If we have any oral communications from the public. Okay, so then we have draft minutes for the July 16 meeting that were in the packet, and no changes to those yet. Does anybody have any changes to them?
Nope.
I
Didn't see
have
anything, no.
one that's so minor, I'm embarrassed to bring it up. It says under number 2, FY 2016 library budget, basic requests with new buildings, which included additional funding for equipment, maintenance, and supplies. Did we mean with there, or was it for new buildings? And I'm only concerned because it sounded a little bit to me like we're not requesting new buildings, so.
Oh, yeah. Basic requests with new buildings. Yeah, I mean, I think what
As a result of?
that's fine, sure.
As a result.
Yeah. Otherwise, perfect.
Okay.
So, let's see, we need a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I so move. I'll second.
Should we vote? Aye.
Aye.
All right. And a presentation from Diane.
So Diane is at the same parent meeting that Sheena is
Oh.
So I am stepping in. So we've got the screens up there. I don't believe you have a printout of the presentation, so just sit back and relax, and we will include it, attach it to the minutes in the next meeting. So you had requested a little bit of examination or update on what sorts of digital resources we have, questions about use and cost, and that kind of information. So Diane prepared the following presentation. So the digital resources include things like ebooks, e-audiobooks, e-video, and e-music that may be streamed, as well as databases. So we're talking about a broad range of materials and formats. And it's a service that's in progress. We've been developing it over the last 4 years, especially while we were under construction in certain locations. And hours were changed to make as many different materials available 24 hours a day as possible, because these are all, almost all of them are accessible from home, not 100%. So databases are the first service the library provides whose content is curated for library users and fully digital. That means somebody has gone in and decided what, either what's appropriate or, it's somehow limited. It's not sort of like searching the web. Overdrive was the first ebook service that the library had subscribed to, and that started in 2009. So Palo Alto belongs to a group of libraries in Northern California to jointly purchase. So we all chip in, and thus we all have access to the same pool of books. So you may be on the waiting list for a book, but you may be on the waiting list with someone from Shasta County, someone from Benicia, someone from San Francisco. But then we started purchasing additional copies of the books for Palo Alto cardholders. So we had sort of a separate pool that would get you through the wait list faster. So if you were waiting for a popular fiction title and there were no holds, there were 40 holds on there, but there were the Palo Alto pool, for whatever reason, no one had placed a hold yet, then Bob, you would be at the top of the list and get that copy, and no other libraries would see those copies as available. Okay, so only Palo Alto card holders would get those. So then in 2012, we've been adding 1 to 2 new digital types of materials annually, not just ebooks, but videos and music. The Access 360 ebook service was added in September 2012, and this collection is only for Palo Alto cardholders. We pay for our subscription or our titles. It's not shared. So that means fewer wait lists and shorter wait lists. Then we added Enki in 2013, and it offers titles from independent, small press, and self-publishing publishers. And there's also not the same kind of limits, whereas with Access 360 or Overdrive, it's one copy, one user at a time, and then when it's returned, Bob's done with it, then Doug may use it. Enki, a lot of their titles are available to multiple users at the same time. So in fall of this year, we will be adding Total Books, BOOX, to add something else, and we'll be a pilot library trying this one out. Zinio is an e-magazine service that has titles like Economist, Newsweek, and Flipster is another magazine offering that we've added recently, and it has Consumer Reports and People magazine. And in each of those cases, we don't have access, again, to the full suite of titles. We pick those titles that are either most popular or provide multiple points of access for different folks. Then we have IndieFlix. That includes independent films, foreign award-winning films and documentaries on a large number of topics. We have Freegal for Sony Music, almost exclusively Sony Music, but it does have other smaller music and a lot of world music, I think, that people may not have access to in other formats. Hoopla has video, music, and audiobooks. We added it in 2014. And it has some popular programs like Downton Abbey and other things. And they've recently added ebooks and comics in May of 2015.
Comic books?
Comic books. Yes. So again, the databases, Gale, EBSCO, that may not mean anything to you. Those are different vendors. They have different kinds of collections, and they have them all divided up into different products. So there will be something like a history resource, and there will be, like a consumer resource, and other types of things like that. So they have comprehensive information for research. And these come in bundles or single subject. It's sort of like buying cable. You have a grouping of a suite of things that sort of meet almost everybody's needs, but then there's one or two that you have to pay extra for because you want to have those there.
So this would be like the database of American history or the ancestry research or something.
Genealogy, California
Genealogy.
missions, Rand maps. There's And we've created a how-to guide that's available at the desks to help people and reference librarians provide better service. So if you go online to the e-resources, you sort of get an introductory page that says kind of what are you looking for, but we actually have something in paper so that we can also do a reference interview, talk to the customer, and then mark off the databases that are most likely to answer their search. Because one search doesn't search the whole pool, you have to go in and do separate searches. Some of them are more academic focused, academic journals, things like that. Some are more popular, Time, Newsweek, Better Homes and Gardens, all those kinds of searches.
On these offerings, let's call them,
Sure.
where they have a number of different options,
Mhm.
and you're picking a few, what determines which ones you pick? Is it what the staff thinks is important, what you're getting from looking at reviews of library demand area-wide, nationwide, or people are saying, I want that particular item?
All of
How do you
those-
choose it?
All of those things. Kind of the same way that we choose library, any kind of library material. We look at reviews. There are journals that review databases, that review, just as they would review a reference book. You know, if you think about the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, where you would used to look up a topic, well, this is primarily the same thing. You're looking for that topic in many magazine articles mostly, or journals. But yes, we do all of those things. Some of those things we think about, okay, what's the cost of a print subscription, where we might have one item in only one branch? Does this database include that magazine? And you wouldn't be looking at it like a magazine, but you would have access to the content. And so maybe it makes more sense to include that if it's something really popular and also expensive. Some of the things, you know, there are some people who have their favorites and they're pricey. So when you have to buy them from multiple locations, then it can add up.
What makes it easier, or it would, you don't have to keep so many back copies of
Also,
periodicals also,
yes.
right? And that would be a big savings for the
Right.
city.
And the only space that we have to store is in the basement of Rinconada. That's the only storage space for back issues of magazines and things like that.
And then with the exception of the databases for the Foundation Center, the schools can access this at school.
Oh,
So
Right.
they can use their library cards and
okay.
access the database.
Right. And when you go onto the website and you see the information, it will tell you if you can only access it in the library. So the Foundation Center is one, Ancestry.com is one. The vendors have placed a limit on what you can get outside or inside a library building.
I see, so something.
If you only
like
can
that.
get it inside the library, then does it cost more to have it accessible to all 5 branches, or?
No, that's a good question. No. No. Well, no. It depends again on how they do the pricing. Do they do the pricing
Yeah.
based on the population? Do they do most of it? Do some sort of a formula that factors in how many card holders you have, how many sites, how many? But something like Ancestry.com is available on all of the computers within a branch. But you're right, multiple places can increase that cost. Not always, though.
That's weird, because
It is weird. Well, they're selling a product to the public as well, right? You've seen
Yeah.
commercials for Ancestry.com, and so
Yeah,
they
they
want you to buy it to use it at home. And for some people, coming into the library might just be that incentive then to go and use it at home, where it may be more convenient for them. You know, they can have access to it at different times. So for the vendor, it might be a benefit to have
It's
that,
advertisement, yeah.
in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll keep going. Go the wrong way. Okay, so we have ebooks. Some are downloadable to your device, and some are titles you have to read online. So we have over 18,000 items through Overdrive. So that includes both those that we pay for separately and those that are part of the consortium purchase. We have Access 360, which is over 4,000. Then California mission books, which are very useful for the 4th grade mission report. If you've had a child in school in 4th grade, you know you need to make a diorama overnight. So this is a helpful thing to have at home. We have Tumble books, which are also for children. There's 115 titles. Over 8,000 for Safari books, which are technical. Enki, for over 42,000. Then Learning Express, which is test-taking materials. So things where if you're going to go to the post office, you have to take an exam to qualify. And so these are exam books and other things like that. Bookflix, another one for children, right? 111 different titles. So these consist of those that you can download onto a personal device or read it online. Typically, people tend to think only about downloadables as ebooks, but you need to remember that some of these you will read on a computer screen. You wouldn't download it.
Well, yeah, right, but if you can read it on a computer screen, I would think you could read it on your iPad screen.
Not always.
Not
No,
always.
it's not
Sometimes
automatic.
it just won't work.
It's the vendor. A lot of the technical books, especially like the Safari books, or the children's things that might be more interactive, it may require you to keep it on your computer screen and not download it. We'll talk a little bit about how hard it is to download.
Yeah, I was just thinking you can use the internet on your iPad, and so you should
So
be
you
able
could,
to
yes, you
read
could
them
open
as if
it.
it was a computer.
You're
yeah.
right. You're not downloading the copy.
It's not like putting it in their Kindle. but
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So within the downloadables, there are ebooks for reading and e-audio for listening to, right? And so it's like audiobooks, but a downloadable. So these are the number of items that we either purchased or which we have access to based on how we're paying for it. So then there's e-magazines. So Zinio, there's 69 different titles. Flipster, there's 24. Right now, these are only the 2 vendors. So of the 69 from Zinio, there's The Economist, Apple Magazines, and Bloomberg Business Week, which are the most popular for people to access.
Can you
So-
repeat that again? Which was?
The Economist, Apple, like the Apple products, Apple magazines, and Bloomberg Business Week. And then we just launched Flipster very recently, so we don't have a whole lot of usage information. But the librarians went through and picked out which ones they wanted, and we mentioned it has People, Consumer Reports. It's got Sunset Magazine as well. So more popular titles that people may want access to at different times. Then e-video. So we have over 32,000 titles on Hoopla and 6,600 via IndieFlix. And then the e-music, there's about 9 million titles of music, songs on Freegal, and about 600,000 items through Hoopla for music. And again, it's important to remember the vendor could change that at any time. The contract could be up with Sony. We may not have access to the same number or the same titles. And these are all available for streaming. So again, the number of titles available change depending on the contract negotiation between studios and the vendors that we work with. So remember that 9 million figure, because it will come up in the director's report when we talk about the statistics. So at a glance, this gives you what we spent last year by material type. So you can see database, ebooks, e-magazines, e-video, and e-music. So on the databases, it was 90,000. That, you know, going around. So ebooks, 35,000. And then the per item cost, with ebooks, we can do an average cost. So the average cost is $53, aggregating all of the different vendors that we use. And again, as Bob is well aware, and I'm sure all of you are, some of the titles, you know, we have to repurchase after they've circulated a certain number of times, though a couple of the vendors won't deal with those publishers, so we don't necessarily even have access to all of the titles you might think we do. So these are all rounded up figures. So we purchased the majority of these products through Khalifa, which is a library consortium that we belong to negotiate a better price on behalf of libraries in California. So last year, purchasing through Khalifa resulted in a 25% overall savings. One of your App Places items is this one, which says the member savings report. And I only just received this week, but we are one of the super savers. So based on what we purchased through using Khalifa to negotiate prices, we saved over $190,000 last year. It does include a list of the different databases and items that we've purchased, including Freegal, things like that. And you can see the two columns are, the first column is what the retail price should be, and the second column is what we paid through Khalifa. So there's a real good value to this membership.
Well, looking at some of them, the savings is not even trivial.
No, that's
Yeah.
true.
The one that struck me right off was Gale Platinum Package. The retail is $13,992, and we paid $11,894. We saved all $2,000.
Right.
Wow.
Well, I think the ProQuest, the Safari tech books, $182,000 retail, and we paid $4,000.
That one paid off.
That one
Yeah.
paid off. So it's and those technology books are extremely popular in this area because, you know, there's a lot of people in the tech industry who would like to use them.
Just, what do they, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What do they mean by retail? Does that mean it was hard copy?
No,
Or does it just
if
mean
we were
it was
just
a
paying
private
for that database or that
Okay.
thing, just without Khalifa's negotiated
Okay.
price.
Do we buy everything through Khalifa or just certain things?
No, they don't have everything available, but what's shown on the list is what we purchased.
Which we purchased. And what's the pay model? Is it per read or not? Or are we going
No.
to talk about that? I just wasn't sure.
So no, it's not. So, and it depends. So the ebooks, we could give you an average cost. You'll see that for magazines, videos, and music, we give you a range because it depends. Because I talked with Diane about this, and she said there was too much statistical variation when I came up just with the average. So I wanted them to understand what the range is depending on the cost. $380 a year, that's the subscription for The Economist. $23.97 is something a little less intense and high.
Is that, the 380, is that a real outlier, or is that just a little higher than the average?
That's a real outlier.
Strikes me as a real outlier.
Yeah. And it's about that too in print, so. But again, it's a super popular.
For the popularity of it and the cost of it originally,
Yeah.
it's kind of, it's still good, probably.
Yeah, not bad.
You'd have to have how many subscriptions, how many copies otherwise?
Well, we would
Or
have.
how many do you already have? You probably don't know.
We probably, off the top of my head, I don't know, but
Mhm.
we would have likely 4 copies, probably, depending on which branches.
Mhm.
Yes.
So you mentioned, I was going to ask, the print cost or the traditional cost Is there a way to know or like I don't know for books? Do we have an average?
An average
book
cost is generally between. It depends on if it's fiction or nonfiction, but generally it's somewhere between $15 and $25 per copy.
15
Depending
and
is the
20.
average.
per copy.
Annually, there's the nonfiction tends to be higher,
Right.
so that comes down when averaged with the fiction, and the fiction goes up. So it's about 15 to 25.
So for that ebook average, is that one read, or is that
it could be.
It could be one read. It could be 100 reads. We don't know. It depends on the
Right.
publisher and the
Right.
publication.
That's correct.
Mm.
And with the ebooks, I mean, like, again, 26 reads, then we have to pay that again to still have access to that same title, depending on the publisher.
Mhm.
So, let's go to the use. So the tricky part of the database usage, it shows the total number of searches that were conducted, and they're roundup. But again, the database vendors, they each count it differently. So for some, it is actually per search. For some, it is per login. For some, it is per length of time. And so this is a number, again, that is a little squishy, but last year, over 54,000 searches were done using databases. The ebook checkouts were over 45,000, e-magazines over 11,000, video downloads were 8,000, and e-music people used 57,000 pieces, meaning that could all have been Taylor Swift in One Direction, downloaded repeatedly, or it could have been 57,000 different pieces of music. But it's the same with books, you have a turnover for that way. So some of the other data for last year too is that half of the 5,600 active ebook users are new. So that's it's a growing area. 30% of the active e-magazine users are new. We have 2,000 active e-video users and 1,100. So these figures translate into close to a 50% increase in the total number of users last fiscal year. Flipster's 2 new. In Zinio alone, we saw 341 new users last year, which you don't typically think of 341 people walking in the door to use magazines. It seems like a lot to me, but maybe not. There's a lot of regular magazine readers, so so they've all had fairly high usage rate. Maybe it's a one-time thing; they just wanted to see what it was like. But the active users are people who regularly return to use multiple times throughout.
Are these all different users, or are some users in more than one category? Is there any way to tell?
Oh, they could definitely be in more than one category. Yes, they're not. It's not. The ebook users may also be the video users, may also be the music
Okay,
users.
so
yes. But we
We
could
don't know.
tell. Yeah.
because what I was trying to do is to compare the ebook users with total library card holders, and you really can't do it because you don't know if you sum this up, if it's an individual or if you got the same 1,100 people are doing active music or are included in the 2,000 that are doing
Correct.
video.
That's correct. Right. I've heard from different folks, including a former LAC member who said, "My kids wait every week because with the Freegal music, you can't just download every song ever. You get to download it. You get to keep it forever. I mean, it can be in your iTunes or on your music database and things like that. That doesn't expire. but you're limited to 3 checkouts per week.
Oh,
If we did it unlimited, because of our subscription, we're limited to X number of downloads annually. So that's a different
Oh.
pricing model. We could pay per download, but we wouldn't be able to easily predict our budget. And so, and every year when you go to Corey and say, hey, we think we need this much for music, and then we could just blow that out of the water if we didn't have it limited somehow.
So 3 songs per week per user.
Yes.
So 150 a year per user maximum. Is that right? I mean 156
Yeah. Yes.
per user.
But
Yes.
then you get to keep it in your iTunes, so
You get to keep it forever.
once you've
Oh, that's-
downloaded, it's yours.
That's a
Yeah.
download
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
versus a stream.
that's
Yes.
Can they stream it as well? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
No,
Go ahead.
no, they can't stream. They can download. So you would with Freegal, you're downloading it. I believe you're not Hoopla. I don't know. I actually haven't tried that one yet because that's a relatively new one. So
I mean, I can see for kids, there's that song they listen to over and over and over and over again. That would,
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be
You don't
great.
have to pay what is it, how much
Well,
is, I don't download
99
anything from
cents.
iTunes. Is it 99 cents?
So it looks like the music, I mean, people, if I'm doing the math right, and it's the numbers I think they are, it's about 57 songs per user
yes.
that they've downloaded.
Per-
Because there's 57,000 that were downloaded last year or used,
And about
and
1,000.
1,100 active users.
Yeah, so it's
yeah.
Somewhere around there. Probably there are people who only downloaded that one song they needed to play 95 times,
Uh-huh.
and that might have been the only thing they did. So they're not an active user. So there are other users, other people who downloaded eMusic and other things, but they're not active because it's been a certain period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems like music users download a lot of single items. And then the ebook users, it seems like it's growing the fastest. I mean, but you're only talking about maybe nine checkouts per ebook user
If
per year, roughly.
right.
yeah,
And is there any limit on that or any cap on that? Or is it all that's available?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So how do we meet the demand? Let me make sure I don't go too far. So we have a committee. Here you go. We have a committee to determine what databases to purchase. We chiefly use statistics, customer suggestions as the decision-making points. So for what to add, that's a lot of it. We have a selector who purchases ebooks and e-audiobooks for adults, teens, and child audiences. To make the materials known to our users, we've developed more resources to help publicize our ebooks and to help customers get started. So we have a business card called eBook Help by Appointment, and that you can call in and make an appointment to have somebody help you. We have tutors who sit there and figure out what it is you want to download and sit there with you, coach you until you have successfully downloaded it to your device. And a lot of them are teenagers who were trained as part of a grant-funded project initially, and they've continued as volunteers. And then we have the library in your pocket brochure, and that item highlights all of the e-services that we have available. We also have the e-help webpage. So staff are becoming more comfortable answering ebook related questions because we do a lot of training. The vendor websites have improved, their apps have improved, and we offer on-site classes as well as personal tutoring. So there are often waiting lists for ebooks, and we keep the number of holds and number of items owned ratio for ebooks to 6:1. So 6 holds for every 1 copy. Additional copies have been purchased when there were more holds. In the last year overdrive, the Northern California Digital Library made a helpful change to the way the hold wait list displays. Instead of showing the total holds, so you would go on there and you'd see a title and it would say 73 holds. Now it shows holds per copy, so you can find the one that might have a shorter list, and you'll be able to do that. And since we participate in the Advantage program, where we buy additional copies just for Palo Alto cardholders, it calculates differently for the Advantage titles. So you might see there's a copy that has no holds, but that's probably because it's for Palo Alto cardholders. So it's a somewhat improved experience for library users and better expectations regarding when a copy will become available. Streaming services enable pay per use. Hoopla uses a pay per circ model. The entire collection is available to customers at all times, no wait lists, and the library only pays for what our customers actually use. But we have a range, so we have an established budget, and at the end, and I keep saying this, what happens if we run out, like we're done? And the answer is, it's not going to happen. It's what they tell me. Diane believes the analysis is that it will not. It will not happen.
You mentioned in-demand ebooks.
Uh-huh.
Do we know, are the ebooks that are in demand, in the most demand, the same as the print books that are the most in
Frequently,
demand?
yeah. Most, I would say, for the most part.
So it really strongly correlates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And those tend to be newer,
Newer
more popular
titles.
titles.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So here are some trends. So there's a lot of information here. So here we go. So here are some major trends that staff have noticed and felt that will impact how to budget, select digital materials. So major publishers all sell ebooks to libraries now. However, each one has their own licensing terms. Some allow perpetual access to purchase copies, but charge a higher amount for each purchased copy. So they charge you $80, but then you never have to renew it. It always is in your collection. However, as the state of Kansas found, if you cancel the contract and you're done, those books do not belong to you. They stay with the publisher and they will disappear. So some charge less per copy, but limit how many times a copy can circulate or how long the library owns that copy. So the HarperCollins ebooks circulate 26 times and then they need to be repurchased. And Macmillan ebooks can circulate 52 times or can be in the collection for 2 years and then they must be repurchased. So if you're looking at the most popular items after 2 years, there may not be a reason to actually retain that item, but
number of them.
but it's still a maddening, thing.
How long does a print book last typically? Is it 2 years? Is it,
It
5
depends
years? It depends.
on
Do
how
you
many
mean
people
before
use
it's
it.
all-
On
falls
the
apart?
on the show, like what's the average life cycle of a print book?
It depends.
It depends.
Because
Yeah.
it was a popular fiction title, Danielle Steele. It fell apart easily within the first 2 years. Some other books have been on the
there
shelf
for decades.
for decades and are used once or twice a year.
You used to see books rebound in libraries a lot. I don't know, is that still
Yeah,
commonly
we
done,
try
or-
to avoid that just because they
Mhm.
come out, they're so ugly. I mean, it's
Mhm.
not something that you really gravitate towards, and we're
Mhm.
very visual buyers, right?
Mhm.
So, okay, I'll keep going. There's-
I've got a question.
Yes.
Since they all have these different models, it sounds like they're trying to figure it out maybe? Or there's a reason one works for one and they chose that and one works for the other. So I'm curious about why from their perspective they're all different. And are they making money on ebooks? Are they making more money on ebooks? I'm just curious if you've gotten any indication about how the industry's structured.
They want to make money, period.
I realize that.
Yeah, so yes, I mean, I think it depends because, you know, if you go as a buyer, as someone to, I mean, that's part of the controversial aspects of this. If you go to Amazon, I mean, it's a $9.99 book or a $14.99 ebook that we will pay average $58 for each of those books. You can't donate it to us.
Right.
You can't. You can give it to a friend, maybe, depends on the book, and I think that's part of. You know, I think that for publishers, this format change was a real business opportunity because, you know, there's always that feeling that publishing is dying, but I don't see that either.
And I'm just curious. You use the analogy of a $9.99 versus a $53 e-title.
Mm-hmm.
What about a print title? How would that? You can get it online for $12.99 on Amazon,
So
maybe.
right. So
what would we pay for it?
Well, we buy from book vendors who sell to the library trade, and they give us discounts, but discounts are applied differently depending on the kind of book. So a fiction books, and depending on the quantity that you purchase per year, and you know,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of factors in that. So the book may be 30% off of the regular price, just as a regular thing. Certain kinds of nonfiction titles may only be 10 to 15% off the publisher price. So,
But it's at
it
a
depends.
discount, actually.
For the
Typically.
most part,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, maybe a rare reference title might be more
Not.
or hard to get.
Sure,
But for a
Yeah.
in demand available,
there are
Well,
discounts
that's
applied.
interesting. So it's almost the opposite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have those pre-processed, so there are other costs associated with it, but it's generally about $2 to $5 per book, depending on what security is added to it, the radio tag, the cover, the stamps. So most publishers are still following the existing model for selling printed books when selling their content in e-format. They want one to first pay for a copy and then have access to content. So this model guarantees profit for publishers. But for libraries, we may have some ebooks that do not get used much.
So you'd like to make them available and pay when they're used?
Yes,
Is that what
as
they're
in a
suggesting?
trending
That's
model,
nice.
which we have seen in the world of music industry and their
Mhm.
streaming partners, one downloads first and pays after downloading. This model guarantees that all of the ebooks we purchase get used since users drive the demand. In talking about, so that's part of the evolving marketplace, and one of the, and it's changing all the time. And one of the things that actually I added to Diane's report is this thing about advocacy from the library field. There's a project called Readers First, and it's an organization of nearly 300 libraries that represent 200 million readers around the world that are working to ensure access to free and easy to use ebook content. Mostly talking about how many challenges there are to downloading. You know, that you know, if we paid for the book, maybe we should get an e version for free, something like that. So there's, if you go to readersfirst.org, I believe, then you'll see more information.
Do you think there'd be a possibility of working with the publishers so that if you buy a paper copy, you'll get an ebook which can be checked out a limited number of times?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and the selling point from the librarian standpoint is, well, we're trying to make this available so people will want it as an ebook, and then if it really is used, then we can come back and buy it.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a lot of options out there, which brings us to increased ease of access. Ebook vendors have developed many new APIs for developers to use in order to integrate ebooks more seamlessly into library catalogs. Some vendors now offer the option to read online or listen online without needing to download into special software or a separate app first. Overdrive, for example, no longer requires the setup of a separate Adobe ID on a separate website before you could download the ebook. So you would pick the ebook and then it would say, okay, now you have to go to Adobe, set up the Adobe ID, download the thing, then come back, get the book. I mean,
Every time,
no,
just the first
but
time.
you would have to have it set up. So that was confusing to a lot of people. Access 360 is moving to a single app experience rather than requiring several apps with several external accounts. And I should point out that the downloadable audiobooks also required sometimes separate things. So this will be a feature of our new ILS, Sierra, which should allow customers to find, check out, and manage the ebooks on their account right inside the library catalog, along with the physical collection content. So I mentioned Total Books as something that we're getting new. The library will be launching it in the fall this year. It's a 6-month pilot entirely subsidized by the Khalifa Partnership. So it will provide unlimited access to O'Reilly and other tech titles without holds, so no holds, no timeouts, no turnaways, no limited number of concurrent seats, and no expirations. So you'd be able to keep the title forever if you needed it, which will be a huge benefit, as well as allowing multiple people to use simultaneous titles. So their ebook model provides the library with full access to all participating publisher titles, with the library only paying for pages that the patron reads. So if you don't read the whole book,
You only pay for
we
part.
only pay for the pages you've read.
Who was that?
That's different.
Well, but it makes sense, especially with a lot of the technology titles and those kinds of things. You're looking for a specific chapter, you're looking for a specific section, and that may work out better.
It actually becomes probably useful for the publisher to know what the topics are that.
Sure.
It's like secret information.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How do you
Well, I don't
actually
think it's so
configure this
secret.
one? Well, it's not secret, but it's, your value as an engineer tends
Right.
to be that you know how to do this little thing or that little thing. This is how they're wired up.
Right.
Yeah, so.
So, and it's particularly well suited to niche content like technical books or cookbooks or other reference materials where retention by the patron, owning what they've read, is of real value, and patrons typically only need a portion of the ebook content. It would be really good because a lot of people come to the library, take the cookbooks, cut out the recipes that they want, and return them to the library with the holes where the recipe they want is.
And put them in
Very
the machine
common.
in the little area.
Sure. Just return it, yeah. Or don't even check it out in the first place. Just
Cut it out.
cut out the turkey recipe for Thanksgiving. So the library's also in the process, we could tell you some stories. The library's also in the process of creating an e-branch, and when this is in place, we will have ways to enrich users' experience of using digital materials, and that we hope will lead to additional increased use.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Which is kind of, what does that mean? Does that mean there would be a page on the library site for the e-branch and that it might be a more interactive website or something like that? Is it going to be, or,
Yes.
okay. That's what I would imagine it to be.
So let me show you on the home page where you go right now, just so that it's clear and you can go home and look this up. So you have ebooks, e-research, and more. And it gives you all kinds of basic information, digital collections, language learning, And then the Foundation Center explains how to use their resources. The streaming video, the music, the museum passes, and the magazines. But, and this is where you'll also find help and other resources. So when we first started talking about this with the LAC, members then really had an idea of, excuse me, the E-branch really being what you find inside the catalog, so that all of these resources are not separate things that you have to search, but that when you go into the catalog and you search for gardening, not only do you find the regular cookbook or gardening books, but you also will find anything that's showing up in some of these resources. If the book happens to be published in a different language, maybe refer you to language learning to help you read the book, or figure out, there's downloadable, music to listen to while you garden, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that everything will come up. And eventually even things like, oh, there's a gardening class being offered next week at Community Services, the link then takes you to that. So you become sort of this community network for all of that information. And it all happens within this one sort of virtual space.
And you're building that now?
We're working on it now.
That's,
Actually, it is one of our capital improvement project, our CIP budgets is for the development of the E-branch, and we've been working on it with a consultant to help us get to the point of being prepared for the.
I love the statement of the vision. It
Uh-huh.
strikes me as something that's very hard to actually practically make happen.
Mhm.
But the closer you get to it, the better. I mean, that's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
When do you think you'll have it, let's say,
Ready
I don't
to
want to say
look
developed,
at.
but at the point where a user can go in and use it easily? Months, days, weeks? Months.
Months still, and maybe even into next year, because the vendor that we have been discussing this with, based on how we've done the contracting and things like that, is still, it says, is working with other libraries as well, and we all have the same idea and the same goal, and so we're still working on the exploration of how does this feasibly work out.
Yeah, because to a certain extent, it implies that the people who provide the ebook services would provide certain tags that you could use to hook into your catalog system, which they may. It's not
Right.
necessarily in their
Well,
best
the
interest.
ebooks are, I think, an easier one, because we do have a great cataloger on staff who does add a lot of access points to many items. So,
she could do that.
including,
Yes,
as
you
I
could do
found
that.
out, some staff reports from city council. They go through the city council packets and actually add staff reports to the library catalog. So it's pretty amazing.
That'd be great. It'd be really, really nice.
When you do get it up, I think you got to really publicize it, because I think a lot of people don't realize the assets that are available through the library, especially online.
And who has access to that? Anybody who has a Palo Alto library card? Is that-
To
the online resources?
Yes.
For the most part, there might be some things like the digital local interest or not.
Yeah, the digital local
in
interest, you
anyone.
don't need a card. You can just.
But for the most part, it's
click
a
on.
library card is the passport in.
Yes.
And to get a library card, you have to physically visit one of Palo Alto's libraries.
You can start your card application online. Eventually, yes, you have to come in, but you could have access without it. I think with the temporary number, but not to everything. You need to come in and show us, this is who I am, here's my address. But anyone in California can get a library card.
Of course,
So
if they visit the library physically.
we've been known to make a few exceptions.
Well, I mean,
just because we're helping
right. Some people
research
maybe
or-
don't.
or they're
Got it.
homebound, or they're whatever.
Yes,
But
right.
yeah.
But for the most part,
right,
yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right.
okay.
Hmm.
All right, so we will attach the PowerPoint and the notes again to the next minutes so that everybody can take a look at that. And if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And I think I'm done with that.
Well, thank you very much. It was really helpful.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and thank,
Useful.
was Diane?
Diane.
Yeah.
Yes, thank Diane a lot. She's
It's great presentation.
I told her that she would have to do another presentation this year, so.
well, there's clearly a lot of thought and effort put
Yes.
into this service and to understanding how to move it forward.
So I just have a kind of wondering, we want to give as much access as possible, obviously, to as much resources as we can. Is there any situation or scenario where we'd where we'd prefer that a patron use an ebook versus a print book? And I'm just thinking, so I got an example maybe, and maybe
Okay.
it's a side case, but it has to do with a popular title, Dead Wake, and I went in and I wanted to get it, and it wasn't available. Oh, but if you go to Rinconada, there it is, and there it was, and there were a number of brand new copies. And I was talking to the librarian, and he mentioned that sometimes we can lease, I think, extra copies or buy extra copies temporarily while
That's right.
something's in demand.
Yes.
So we're paying more to give more access, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just wondering, is there a situation where instead of having all those extra print copies, you say, oh, this is really in demand, it actually would be more economical and it could be easier for people to access through an ebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have popular in-demand titles, there might actually be a scenario where we suggest or want to promote and use that as a strategy to be efficient and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of I don't know if it's a side case or that's typical because there's always in-demand new titles, and we're probably always leasing extra books, to make them available. But is there any kind of things like that, or does that even make sense from? I'm not sure how you
From a cost standpoint,
A cost perspective,
it's
yeah.
probably still cheaper to lease the books. I
the
mean,
print.
we're probably paying less than we would for the ebook. If it's a popular title like that, we no doubt have copies available. If it's part of that Palo Alto Advantage collection, we are adding more. But you're looking at, okay, what is the audience for those different materials, different users like different, and
If they like
honestly,
it in print or they like it.
even with all of this electronic information and people who tell me, yes, I go on vacation, I take my Kindle, it's loaded up with 10 different books, so I never get bored, I never run out. But when I come home, I still want to read it in a paper hard copy. So I think right now we're sort of in that space of trying to find what is really going to be the sweet spot. Will it stay the same? Will we have to actually continue to evolve, which is more where I think we would be going, because some of these things with some of the projects with self-published books and things like that really kind of, it's more about the creation really than the use. But I'll ask Diane to take a look at that, and we can at some point we'll come around to.
I think I'm coming to the conclusion that the ebooks are not cheaper.
No.
Whereas for us as consumers, they're cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you go to buy an ebook, it's generally cheaper than the hard copy. But for the library, it's not necessarily cheaper. So it's more a matter of convenience, some of these other space, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a
Space
real,
is big.
Big
Space is always a big
It's
consideration.
expensive, so that makes it cheaper then.
Sure.
In some
because-
ways later, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
For the library.
Space, and we don't have to. It doesn't have to run through an AMH machine to be returned.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to go search for it on the shelf. So that
Yeah.
there's staff time involved as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Okay.
Or be reshopped.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there? I just have one
More
last question.
questions?
I know we've gone over on this
Way
topic,
over,
but
yeah.
accessibility.
We need the bell
Is there? For in terms of either blind users or ADA compliant, is that something that I imagine a library association has probably addressed that at more general level, or is there something we subscribe to, or when it comes to e-resources?
I believe that they are ADA compliant. Most of them, you know, when you download it to the Access 360 books, they can be read aloud to you. So they are particularly good for ADA use. So it's not the audiobook version where it might be theatrically read by some actor or the author, but it's actually just reading the text to you. And so you can, you know, just plug your headphones in and follow along. So if you're a literacy learner, you can also hear it read to you to learn to read better. Again, it depends on the vendor, but for the most part, we are required to be ADA compliant, and they should be following that. So if people need headphones, we have headphones. We do all of that. You can adjust the type size depending on what you need.
Okay, more questions? We move on to the next topic, which is the report on the length of term for LAC subcommittees. So there was material included in the packet.
Mm-hmm.
So did we all read it? And so that we can go ahead with discussion, or do we need to summarize this in the?
I looked through
I
it.
did.
Yeah.
So, and basically what it said was, the city council set rules for ad hoc committees. And they use the ad hoc committees as a temporary way to have some number that's less than a quorum meet on a particular subject. And it looked to me like that could go on for as much as a year sometimes for them, but in general, the idea is start them up and shut them down when you don't need them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
It's
fair summary?
generally a 6-month time
Yeah.
limit.
The city council type committees are typically 6 months. There are occasions where the committee life is extended. It's happened a few times. Sometimes because the project that the committee is working on turns out to be a lot more complex and a lot more difficult to resolve than was thought originally, or they come up with issues that they hadn't foreseen, and they say, well, gee, we have to work on this thing in addition to our original charter. So the committees have been extended. There have been, as I recall, just a couple of occasions when a committee set up by the council functioned for a year or 15 months. It's happened occasionally, but it's rare. And usually it turns out to be a fairly complex issue that keeps turning up all kinds of things that nobody had seen before they started looking. Happens once in a while. So I think as let's say a standard way of operating, we can say our subcommittees will function for 6 months, but they can always come back and ask for an extension if they can explain why and justify it. I think that's reasonable.
I was going to say that I think it it might perhaps going forward be helpful to think about what issue it is you want to explore in a more narrowly defined way, rather than saying we want to investigate teen services. This is the range of things we found, and then perhaps out of that you say, oh, well, I'm really interested in, so really what we wanted to know is what is our relationship supporting school curriculum or something like that. And then that could be another subcommittee set
Right.
of work. Or your thing of following best practices. You can say, well, this is something that requires something ongoing, but maybe it's the library staff brings a report annually or semi-annually about what are current best practices, what are things, or, you know, as you go to conferences or workshops, then you bring back those suggestions. But rather than saying it's this broad, maybe really using that as a quick oversight for a subcommittee to work on, and then to develop what are the particular areas that you feel need investigation.
We have, what, three subcommittees?
I think 3 right now.
So there's the strategy subcommittee.
The strategic plan.
Strategic, yeah, and the library comparison subcommittee, which is the one Sheena and I are on, and then you and
Dawn, teen, youth services.
Youth services. So I think
When did we start this?
after we had that
Strategic planning discussion.
effectiveness training, strategic planning session, yeah.
That was in
Where, yeah.
November, was it, or January?
Right, and
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
I think we could go back and look at the minutes of that and
Mhm.
see, ask ourselves now, what do we want to do? Looking at
Right,
that
I mean, now
again.
that the strategic plan is in existence and we're
Mhm.
working on it, it may not require a subcommittee. It
Mhm.
just could require us to come back with a
Yeah,
report.
and
Yeah.
where we have another subcommittee if you're gonna change it around. or
Yeah,
something,
on the
whatever.
strategic plan in particular, I think we've identified some things that are issues, and the staff is working on them. And so, probably at the next meeting, we're gonna have basically a final report on that subcommittee's actions, recommendations, and then see if we want to continue that subcommittee or we just pass it off to the staff.
Or how we're gonna do that, and I,
Well, we've discussed strategic issues for months,
but for the, yes,
yeah.
that's what I just missed, which one you're
And-
talking about.
You know, there's a limit to how long the subcommittee can look at that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So I think we ought to get a final report basically at the next meeting. And then when the report's out and we've had a chance to look at it or discuss it, we can decide if we want to extend the subcommittee or turn everything over to the staff and have them report back, and or the staff can respond to the way the subcommittee is doing things and say, well, gee, we think that idea is great, but this idea we don't think we can really work on effectively, and this other idea we'll look at and we'll get back to you, whatever. But at some point, we should include it. The subcommittee shouldn't last indefinitely.
Yeah, and I don't think there's necessarily any need for them to last indefinitely, but I think what we were wondering about is how do we go about, what, yeah, so coming back with a report.
Yeah, I think that's a good first step.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, it'll focus the attention of the people on the subcommittee with where they're at, where they want it to go, and how much the goal has been achieved. And then we can decide where we want to go from there. So I think it's a reasonable way to go.
Would you like that on the next agenda?
I think we should put all 3 on the next agenda.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that Sheena and Don will be here. I'm a little reluctant to
That's the
say
other problem.
the
If they're not
committees
here,
are,
they can't
the
report.
subcommittees are over when some of
They're
the
not here.
participants aren't here. So I'd suggest we could agendize all 3, and then we could address each of them individually, get an update if there is one, or discussion about
Right.
potential future topics or directions, or I guess we vote to dissolve it, or does it automatically dissolve? I don't know, Monique, that's just but yeah, I think that's a great idea for all 3, and I think for the teen one, which I'm involved in, that would work, and hopefully Don would be here.
And I'd like the minutes to specifically mention that the subcommittees are going to be asked to respond and give us a status and so on, so the people who aren't here will know what's going on and if we expect something out of their subcommittee.
Right.
That's right.
We'll send
So-
out a follow-up email.
Yeah,
Do we need a motion to this effect from Doug or from Bob and to
No.
vote on this, or if we just put it on the agenda?
I
we're
don't think
done?
so. You're just adding it, you're just asking
Okay.
for it to be on the next agenda.
yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and LAC meetings in libraries, which sounds like it all got handled for us by Eric. Because we've got
Yeah.
we've got a place to meet in the library for the next year, through December.
Through next year.
Next June.
Oh, through next June, sorry, through next year.
Almost,
Yeah,
yeah,
for a
almost a
year.
year, yeah.
Yeah.
Great job.
Why do you say through December? I actually put these in my calendar. Okay. More discussion?
Yeah, I had a question. Does Children's actually have a meeting area? I didn't think they had a meeting room, did they?
They don't have a meeting room, but when we have all staff meetings there, which we do, you guys will get to sit in little chairs around little tables.
Cool.
The library will be closed, so we'll be opening just for the
Oh.
meeting. The public will be able to come in and we'll sit around the fireplace and have a meeting.
Okay.
And so I think it's great. I'm just wondering, should we talk about how we might get the word out, or what
Yeah.
the avenues to do that would be? And I mean, if no one shows up, that's fine. They can watch it. But it'd be wonderful if we did have some participants. So I don't know if we can publicize it in each library or through emails and the newsletter. I don't know what the opportunities are, but
Mhm.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
have the same.
I
What's our
believe it has to be
marketing
open to the
campaign
public
for this? And
For
what
the
what
Brown
is-
Act, so.
Right, they're all open to the public.
Yeah.
The clerk's office will notify on the web, on the webpage. But yes, we can certainly, we can actually just put together a sign for the entire year.
Yeah.
That just
you,
has
you
the
have a
upcoming.
sign that would be in the upcoming, in the library where the upcoming meeting would be, and have that be up
Mhm.
Mhm. And of
for
course,
some
I mean,
period of
if
time.
you wanna do, they're all notified in the paper where.
They are.
Yeah, so,
Which is the weekly and the Mercury, or do we know?
well, it's the weekly.
I know it's in
Yeah.
the weekly. My
Right.
husband explained to me that he saw it. But
Yes,
yeah.
right.
Hmm.
That's what's required in terms
Just-
of the notification, yeah. So,
I'd certainly recommend doing really proactive outreach. I think it's a great opportunity.
Right.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
There's something that actually council's doing. I was going to mention it during my report, but maybe I should just mention it now because there might be some intersection. Policy and Services Committee actually just recommended to the full council that we start holding neighborhood town halls, starting with 2 this fall. Location TBD. And one thing that we might do is actually invite somebody from LAC to come and participate in those, and so we're going to be doing those around the city, hopefully on an ongoing basis in the future, which I'm really excited about. It's something I've been talking about for over a year now. That's part of a larger project that we're trying to push, which is improving city relationships with neighborhood groups, whether the official neighborhood associations or other groups in the neighborhoods in the community. So to the degree that the LAC does that independently, I think is fantastic. So I would suggest let you guys make the decisions, but I would suggest reaching out to organizations like PAN and the individual Palo Alto neighborhoods, the kind of umbrella organization for the neighborhood associations, as well as some of the individual neighborhood groups, near Mitchell Park, the Adobe Meadow, Green Meadow, in particular, quite strong neighborhood associations right nearby. Not to mention Midtown, which isn't too far away. A few others,
Yeah,
but those are
those are
just
really
off the
good
top of my head
ideas.
some of the more prominent ones that
yeah,
intersected with myself.
we do, and we also, through the city, participate in Nextdoor, and all of the different notification things, so we can certainly make that happen.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't see, I'm on Nextdoor, I didn't see that Nextdoor advertised the Library Advisory Commission meeting.
No, we don't normally. What I'm saying
So,
is
so it would be
we
to
were,
add it.
we
We
would
could add it.
notify, we can do it in the newsletter. We can do it in the news, the email news thing that goes
Mhm.
out as well. The meetings are included on the calendars.
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
Right.
Right.
Are you in
So-
touch at all, or I'm
and
guessing, I'm sure you could work with Claudia also, Claudia Keith,
Yeah.
to work on promotion.
Mhm.
We can post it on Nextdoor as an example. And the Midtown neighborhood newsletter that goes out every Friday, more frequently when something's happening, has a list of things that are happening. And they'll have all of the city meetings, including the library commission meeting. And then if there's something else going on, they'll post that also. So, and that comes out, as I say, regularly. So if we're gonna be meeting at Mitchell Park, for example, we can just post it there, and it'll be distributed to all the neighborhoods. And putting it on Nextdoor will also distribute it to the neighborhood associations. And we may start getting people actually showing up at the meetings.
Well, and I guess there's the library Facebook page.
Yes, all of that is automatic. When a
I mean,
press release goes out, everything
That
gets.
is happening over, oh,
Yeah.
so we would do a press release.
Right. I mean,
Release
we
it for
don't
that.
normally do a press release every time there's an LAC meeting.
Mhm.
It's a public meeting. It's part of the regular notification process. But
Okay.
because these are in different locations and you're asking us to highlight it, we'll do a story in hot off the shelf.
Great.
We could do
Yeah.
that as one of the stories.
Well-
And then there's a whole thing where it all automatically gets,
And you will do it,
Funnel
and that's
down.
wonderful. Somebody, Evelyn,
Yeah.
somebody will do it.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
So as far as the
That's much-
neighborhood groups go, I think it's a great idea. It occurred to me.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's something maybe the board wants to do. I mean, you know, we're in the neighborhoods. I don't know if we each want to take one event and say we'd contact those neighborhood groups. So I know I'm in CPNA. I could easily get something up for that for Rinconada children. I could do it for all of them, but in particular the ones in that neighborhood. But I don't know, if we're evenly spread, but we could each adopt. There's 5 board members. There's 5 meetings. We could each adopt a meeting and say we'll do the local neighborhood publicity, or send an email out to the neighborhood group or whoever moderates that. I don't know.
So we could do that. They'll get a press release too, I think, is what you,
I
you're
think
saying that,
from
right?
the
So
city.
he
Well,
was saying
the
they'll
neighborhood
get-
group wouldn't necessarily.
Yes.
Would they?
we-
They would.
Oh, you
Yes.
send them to all the neighborhood groups?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have an email distribution list.
So
To the
I-
neighborhood groups.
But
Okay.
double,
I think-
Pam.
doubling up doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm
So
not-
yeah,
it
to
would
come
be
from
good.
an individual is
I think it would be
Okay.
good to reach out, but then I think, that the understanding that there is a press release, then we could reference, if you have
Reference that,
questions,
yeah.
see this,
Yeah.
or whatever, and if you guys you're gonna share, if you do a press release, you send it to us and you say it went, right?
Mhm.
So that could be our trigger to know, reach out to whatever
Right.
group we're part of.
Although we're been-
I'm not part of anything like that, so,
okay.
um,
All right.
I'm on Nextdoor,
Well, that's
so,
a
I
thing
mean, I
you're a
could
part
say,
of.
see this, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to check with
Sounds
Pam.
good, okay.
I'll do that
Yeah.
Okay.
and see what groups are where.
And I'll look into what neighborhood organizations I should be looking at.
You should be in anything. You already do a lot.
Okay.
But just so I know, the press release is going to be once up front. It sounds like you're not going to do one per meeting.
Oh,
that
I
right?
thought you were.
Or
No,
would
we're
we do
not.
one per meeting?
Well, not a big. We'll do one up front. We'll try and do something that is maybe a story, but we're not going to do
Okay,
one per meeting.
okay,
really.
so
I mean,
then let's put it on the agenda to think about it next month, or next meeting. Also, what we think the follow-up should be, because then, so then we
Right.
would go back to, you would go back to advertising it in the weekly, so would we want to ourselves do something additional? Because I have been thinking about for next door, should I write a little thing, here's my name,
I think it's great.
I'm on the Library Advisory Commission,
Yeah,
Alto
well-
libraries are wonderful, if you have any,
Well, if the first notification,
But-
ideally would list the meetings and locations people are gonna forget about it. You know.
Yes.
Nobody's gonna remember where we're gonna meet next July or next June. But just notify the community that this is the way we're gonna be meeting in the future at the various actual library branches. And by the way, our next meeting is going to be at Mitchell Park, such as a date. Fine. Then, before each individual meeting, we go out with the usual notification. That's all. And I'm just suggesting that we try notifying organizations like Nextdoor and neighborhood associations that are near the branch we're meeting at and see what kind of response we get.
So would we like staff to do that, or is that something we're going to do as a board? What would make the most sense?
Well, the press release will come from the city. And we have a protocol. So if we're doing a press release, it will go through Claudia. I mean, there's a whole
Okay.
way that this all goes.
I think we should see what happens with the next meeting.
With
Yeah.
the first one,
You
yeah.
know, and we're gonna come back with our
Yeah.
and then let's have it on the agenda to just check it again next time.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah,
So the next meeting is at Mitchell Park.
yes.
yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess the reason I'm saying that is then, in my
Excuse me.
estimation, we could just do an ad hoc thing. So we all just talk to people we know
Yeah.
and talk up the meeting. So that could be the action item, or the action item could be that somebody puts together a little formal description of there is an upcoming meeting and here's what's on the agenda and sends that to these organizations for inclusion in their news, or sends it out to Nextdoor or something like that, which is more, I think, what Corey has in mind. That the city council has been doing more of that kind of online outreach.
We're hoping to, or
Yeah.
we're kind of doing something parallel to what you're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just in general, my experience has been, if you're having an event, it's good to put it out a full court press, press release, and for bigger things, but always, from these things that I do, Facebook, Twitter, and then the informal networks or personalized emails or email distribution list. But if I was having 5 events over the next year, I'd be definitely sending out in advance, hey, we're doing this new thing, and also then before each one, a few weeks out or a couple weeks out, with a reminder via all the outlets, the email, Facebook, Twitter. I'm not as good with Nextdoor. I haven't really used it much.
What social media do you use? Yeah. That's not a question, I was just.
And then, is there a place that the annual calendar lives online? I don't go because I've got it in my phone already from our materials. But since we're going to be at a different place every meeting, is there one place people can go to be like, oh yeah, that's right. The next time it's at downtown, and that's on there, and that's going to be there for the year, and it's going to be there ahead of time and stay there.
Yeah, we're gonna actually need to go in and change the ordinance, because the ordinance says where you meet and what day and what time, and that's
Oh, you're right.
that's
Does that have
the
to be voted on by
Yeah.
somebody, like
Yeah.
the city council or something?
yeah something.
Let us know.
Let me see if it includes that specific, or it's just. So yes, there is a boards and commissions area of the city website.
Right.
There is one for the Library Advisory Commission, and then it gives the purpose of that and 5-member body.
We meet every other month on.
Meetings are held
Thursday.
bi-monthly. Please check the schedule of city meetings for exact dates, times, and locations.
Okay, so
Because
location
it's
is
a-
not identified.
Well, no, it does. It said
It
it
is?
meets on the 4th Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. at 250 Hamilton Avenue.
Okay,
So,
so that has to be modified.
so I'll check with the clerk.
Yeah, I think ideally we'd lay out our schedule, and it would be there for people to go back to if they forgot or wanted to figure
Right,
out.
this
Well,
is
and
not.
we're gonna have to remind
Well-
each other, you know.
Well, this is not a website that we, part of the website that we have anything
It's city maintained,
control of.
yeah.
Yes, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It
let me know
probably
if you have any
is
trouble
more,
getting that changed.
Okay.
What's the best term for it? Generic. If we just say that if we just change it to say the library commission will meet at one of the libraries, and the specific library will be identified at the time the meeting notice is sent out, because it can change.
Yeah, and if they really want to be careful, it should be at the city hall or one of the libraries
Yeah.
and just let it be.
Yeah, well, I mean, because when I first started here, the commission said, we're not gonna be meeting at any other libraries, we're just gonna be meeting here for consistency's sake, so
Mhm.
it was the opposite point of view.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the schedule of meetings, that comes out weekly. And it does list where the meetings will be held, so that's also
Okay,
gonna
then
be
just
available.
refer to the schedule of meetings. That makes it easy,
Yeah,
because that's a standard way of notifying the public about all the meetings.
correct.
There's also the library's calendar of events too, so we post it on there as well.
We do
so-
have that on there,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for doing in advance for doing the press release. We'll talk about it in more detail next week, at our next meeting. The one other issue we maybe should mention, the library staff asked that the meetings be over as close to 8:45 or earlier.
Mhm.
So it's already 8:40 tonight, and typically we go for yet another hour. So I just wondered if we should should we change the time to something earlier? Does that make it any harder for the library?
No,
And again, I think we
No.
should leave that for discussion at the next meeting, but hopefully when Evelyn writes the minutes, she'll say, we want to consider what time to start.
well, we can certainly poll you and see if you wanna start earlier.
For any particular one. I don't know if it would be helpful.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
really
it's,
what I was
at-
bringing
it
up.
was Rinconada and Mitchell Park, I think they were specifically requesting that at those two locations.
That it not be
Yeah,
late
we're Mitchell Park, the Native American, just
because of the park.
Well, it's because the program room in Mitchell Park is really part of the library. And there's 2 floors, so there's a little bit of security risk. If the public if we have the public in there and they go out to the restroom, and then we have to monitor whether they've disappeared to the second floor or somewhere in the stacks.
I
So there's like a
see.
whole procedure for when we close the library down to that size, just to make sure no one's hiding.
I see. Okay.
But
And
when
yes,
not, it's
people do
separate.
hide in the library.
I used to work private security for quite
Oh,
a
yeah,
number of years,
that's
so
right, I remember that.
very good at finding people.
Okay, so we can talk about that again next
Well-
time. We'll start at
well,
7 next.
So
at the next
7 is the one at Mitchell Park.
Alright.
So,
So maybe we should.
so we either need to stay strictly to the agenda, which would have been done at 8:45 today. Or we need to, poll or suggest that we poll or whatever to
Yeah.
start earlier.
Can you make it
I-
work?
I don't
I
think-
don't work. I can do
I don't
it.
think there's a problem with
I do.
our meetings lasting too long, not after the city council meeting Monday night. And that was a brief one. Back in the good old days, in the 70s and 80s, it was rare to get out of a council meeting before 2 in the morning.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, so if, so I could meet early.
Yeah, I think it's a
Meet
good
early?
thought.
Could we meet early?
I
can
really
meet early.
prefer the 7 o'clock, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'd be concerned that since Don and Sheena aren't here and then
Yeah,
we'd be
that's
changing
why I
it.
don't want to.
And then also since we're changing the location, if we change the time and the location, that's 2 things at once versus 1 thing maybe at a time. I don't know. So I'm flexible, but I don't know. I feel like maybe for the first one we should. Also, I'm curious what the next agenda is going to look like. If it's going to be really jam packed or not, and we'll know more.
I heard a vote that says leave it at 7 unless we see if the agenda is huge. All right.
Okay.
need to vote on that.
But I think it's
Okay.
worth considering at the next meeting, and if the agenda's getting long.
Okay, Monique.
Okay. Thank you. You had the director's report at places just because the summer is usually pretty straightforward, with a lot of summer reading information and not much else. But I did want to point out, this is for your reading pleasure. So summer reading program signups this year over 3,600 total for children, teens, and adults. That's higher than we've had,
Congratulations.
so that's
Great.
great.
Yeah.
And then on the second page, I wanted to point out that for planning purposes, on the back side of your director's memo, there are upcoming conferences and locations listed. But other than that, I think you did receive a copy of the press release in the email, yes, today, the press release regarding hours.
I didn't send it yet.
Okay, so we released the press release that said that the new hours, it's not in your packet, it will be emailed to you, that begins September 8th, so the Tuesday after Labor Day. Not all the staff have yet been hired, but we've figured out some ways. Eric's been very creative in getting people started, and also having some managers covering some shifts. But the press release is on the front of the city's webpage, as well as the libraries, so announcing the hours changes, expansion of hours till 9 p.m. and all of that. So that will begin September 8th. You also have a draft of the how the library served you. It is still a draft because this is not the numbers that we're submitting to the state library. They haven't requested that yet because that comes later. But I did want to point out the 9.9% increase in circulation over the previous year, largely as a result of Mitchell Park, with nearly a $200,000 or 200,000 item increase at Rinconada. You remember last year it was in Temporary, Maine, and then a corresponding decrease at Downtown, College Terrace, and Children's. But overall, still a gain.
Still up. Wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any particular reason for the decreases in those locations?
Because people have access to the bigger libraries.
Okay, once Mitchell Park opened, it drove people away from,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and Children's, is in one part of town, and Mitchell Park is, not often a walk for people to go to Mitchell. They can walk
Yeah.
to Mitchell Park and take the kids, and it's got a great collection and great children's section.
Exactly. And then on the other side, there's some other information. And remember, I said keep that 9 million item in your head. If you're looking at the total available collection to people, those 9 million items, or close to 9 million, factor in. However, we've asked the state library for direction, because it's not items that we necessarily own or that will necessarily remain the same. It's items that people could access. And so then you start thinking about, well, traditionally we didn't count the items that people could interlibrary loan request. It was just those physical items that we had. So we're talking with them. Likely that number will have to change, and how we're counting things may likewise have to change. So that's another reason this is dropped. But other than that, as you had hoped, community room reservations up, study room reservations up dramatically as we've opened those,
Wow.
spaces. And so we're doing a lot. And when the state report is finalized, I'll bring that whole report for you guys to see. But 1.4, almost 1.5 million, we could have, and the 800,000 visitors is back to where we were. Virtual visits, continuing to rise as well.
Where is that under the visits here? Okay.
No, you see eBranch visits there in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's
Okay.
great.
And then again, attached the Orange Boy dashboard, which you haven't seen in a while. They have changed some of the look and feel of a couple of things. I attached under cluster migration on the second page. I included a second one. Since it's a drop-down screen and we don't typically print out all of the screens, we just have the occasionals. I did want to point out that new card holders, moving to a different cluster, and where were they likely to go? So were they coming in to just get a card and experience a new library, and then 12 weeks later not coming back? And I know that Eric is always thinking about customer retention and how do we get them to continue to come back. So, but household market penetration, taking your suggestion of we need to see how it compares over time. You can see that we've gone from 37% to 43%.
Okay, you get that.
So we're
great. This is good.
Yes, that is a positive trend. And I think that, other than the usual communications and things like that, I think that was all I needed to highlight, unless you have any questions.
So, well, I guess, on this particular one, this customer retention thing,
Yeah.
the key looks like it's blue and orange, but the bars are blue and gold, and so is the gold on the bar supposed to be the orange?
Yes, it's the same thing.
Okay. What has been your overall thought about it? About what you're getting from, well, so I'm not really asking, do you like Orange Boy? I'm really more saying, what have you learned anything?
I think Eric
What have
would
you
be-
learned from it, from Orange Boy statistics?
I'm not trying to take the Jeep way out of it, but we're gonna really dive into that in the spring, in a
Okay.
presentation on it.
Okay,
and I
good.
think we'll have a lot more data to reveal at that time.
Okay.
on it.
Okay, good.
We're gonna, to give you some highlights, we're gonna do some things that Orange Boy has convinced us has been very successful in other libraries, and that is pushing information out via email to new card users. So, hey, we miss you, how come you've been, they've, just doing simple things like that
Mhm.
demonstrate a lot of a big return.
Okay.
on customers. But also I want to do surveys to find out exactly what is either keeping them or not keeping them. And then ideally, when I get to a place where we can track them a lot more specifically about their habits, and then figure out what we can do to change the things that we're doing to accommodate what they're coming for. And the other piece of that is I would love to see us, I don't know if we'll be there by the next spring, but basically bridging this data with their program use as well. So when we do surveys on program users, we want to get to a place where we're going to learn which customers are coming to the different programs we have, and then link that up with the items that they're checking out, or how they're using the computer in the system in other ways as well, and then figuring out what we need to tweak for these different clusters to keep them retained.
Okay, great, that's good.
So I just had a question or comment. You passed on the communication packet,
Yes.
and I enjoyed Sophia's letter.
Yes.
Very articulate letter, raising her thoughts about Mitchell Park Library and resources and space for, I guess you could call them tweens or 8 to 10-year-olds in particular. I'm guessing Sophia's probably about 8 to 10 herself.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, there was a really nice response from the staff, and, as far as looking into it possibly at the next branch meeting at Mitchell Park. But I did notice that our next meeting's at Mitchell Park, and Jenny Jordan's going to be talking about youth services.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering, is 8 to 10 covers youth as well, or is youth more teen oriented?
No, youth is everything from
Everything.
birth to 18.
Up to
15.
18.
Great.
Great. So that's something maybe next meeting we could hear a little bit more about, or if there was anything.
Yeah, I mean, we actually used to have a librarian who specialized in tweens and tween services with the collections and some programming. The way that Mitchell Park was designed, the blue area was intended to be for tweens, but you have all ages sort of bleeding into all the different areas. So yeah, I think I know that Jenny's aware of it, and I'll be interested to hear what the plans are in that respect as well. But I'll be sure to pass that along.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's sort of zoned, kind of by
Mhm.
age, but didn't
But this particular,
in practice.
you didn't notice, yeah.
No, I think she would like a separate room, like just for tweens,
Well,
like the teens.
Hmm.
Maybe.
That'd be a bit hard to accomplish.
It would be.
yeah, it's a
But there are
status thing.
probably
If you're a
things-
teenager, you get to go in, there's that room, and so why not?
Right.
They would probably like that. And it'd be nice to have a quiet room. I can see that too. If the children, if the little kids are more noisy, but are they?
I don't know. I mean, I frequently think that those tweens tend to be kind of, so maybe they want a room to be noisy in.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else? So, council liaisons report?
Well, I
Are you
already
done?
shared what I was going to share when you were
Oh, thank you.
comparing notes on various town halls that we're going to be starting and you're going to be starting. So I'm just excited to see City Hall getting out of City Hall more.
Okay, thank you, Corey, and Monique, I meant to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And do we have reports? Subcommittee?
Didn't meet in
full
August.
meetings, okay,
No, we didn't meet either.
okay.
I will say that Palo is moving their board meetings to Mitchell Park, so this will be good for you,
Yeah.
to know. Beginning with their meeting this month, and they'll be meeting in the staff conference room initially. At their same time, you'll be able to get into the library early. There'll be staff to let you in. So, I just wanted to mention that they had requested that.
Okay. So our agenda for next meeting includes, who is presenting? Somebody from the library is presenting. Jenny, which we just said, okay. We're going to talk about subcommittees. We're gonna have subcommittee reports. We're gonna revisit the time for further meetings, the start time for further meetings. Anything else? Or am I supposed to ask you? No? Okay. Did did we say anything else for agenda? And
That's
the library
what I-
director's report, so we'll have the standard meeting,
Yes.
standard agenda,
Yes.
plus those items.
Calendar question? I was trying to remember back to last year when we presented to council. When is
Oh, yeah.
in the cycle is that, and when would that occur next, potentially? And so what meeting would we want to get that in
We
motion?
did that in the spring.
It's in the spring, is it? Okay, so we've got
The joint study session, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that was in the spring. Okay.
Mhm.
So we have plenty of time.
we do.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, that was like the one meeting that I happened to be sick for, so I missed it.
Perfect. It did get
But-
pushed back though, didn't it? A couple of times.
It was originally, I think, gonna be
In September or October, I think.
early, yeah, September, yeah, and then it
Yeah,
got pushed back twice.
yeah,
Uh,
but that frequently happens. I think it happens every year, so.
Okay.
So it'd be a year from the last one, typically.
Yeah, I mean,
Not that there's anything
There's-
pressing. I just
no, you can certainly do that. I mean, National Library Week is in April. You might want to time it with that. You know, there's all different kinds of things that you could do. I'm open to suggestions. We're happy to agendize it whenever you think it's.
I think our question might be, how do we ever decide we're going to work on it? Does the council come to us and say we want a joint session? Do we ask the council?
You ask the council.
We ask the council.
okay.
So maybe we should put a general discussion of it on the agenda next time. Just
Sure.
Like, when are we going to,
Mhm.
When would we feel is appropriate, or
how,
I mean,
ask
when would the
Bob to tell
council
us how
feel
we
is
decided
appropriate?
before, and,
yeah.
We'll put that on the agenda.
Do you think it's worthwhile talking about the offerings that we have? Because you went through an awful long list of things that we're providing, and I don't think most of the public even realizes those things are available. So maybe we can talk about how we get the word out to the community that ebooks are available, this information is available on the library site, the hours of operation have expanded, here's what the new hours are. Just get out information to the community about how the libraries are responding to their needs.
So that would go to the PR kind of
Yeah,
aspects. I'm sort of at the end of my voice. Jenny will be doing a similar presentation to what I did tonight. So I don't know if
yeah, let's.
if we need to be out by 8:45, maybe we want to have Eric include that in something.
It could possibly wait until the following meeting also, but.
well, yeah, but at some point, we ought to be working on getting out to the public what the libraries are offering, because we offer an awful lot. And considering the number of people who are taking the various services,
Right.
I think we are not getting the word out enough, because we should have 2 or 3 times more people taking some of those services.
So to me, that wouldn't be, it could be something that we put on the agenda for a joint city council meeting, but it also, that could be something, what kind of marketing plan how could we
Yeah.
help the library?
Well, that's what
with their
that's what I was
marketing
driving
plan?
at. How do we tell the public, this is available, you can get it by doing this, that, and the other thing?
Right, because your advocate's out to the council, to the,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think maybe understanding the marketing plan.
Yeah. And
Would-
I think,
you know,
Who's marketing? No, yours or ours or?
ours, like what
Yeah,
do we
okay.
do, what do we do already?
yeah,
Because
Yes.
not every program, not everything has the same, story time has a built-in audience.
Yeah.
There's other things
But
that are
there-
advertised.
but there are a lot of things we've been doing new in the last 6 months, year and a half, 2 years, that I don't think the public is really aware of, at least not enough of the public and not of enough depth. And I think we ought to be getting them information out, because this is the kind of community where if they're informed, they respond.
It's definitely a priority of ours. And so, I think it was a year ago, we presented to the LAC kind of what the broad picture of the things that we're trying to do and how we're tying it together. And now that the buildings are open, we sort of have the staff time to really devote to like, okay, so how are we
Right.
gonna call attention to everything that's going on inside these buildings? So there's a group of us who are meeting and fleshing that out some more. I mean, there are many things that we already are doing to all the sides. I mean, from press releases to we invited Palo Weekly to the library to show them all the resources that we do. So we do, we do one-on-one meetings with them, with other media outlets. We have digital signage in the libraries. We have the newsletter that you referred to earlier, hot off the shelf, and then we do emails. And now over the next year, we'll be doing a lot with really what is marketing, which is trying to figure out how our users are using the library, who could be using it, trying to reach out to them, trying to make sure that they know exactly this is your particular need, and we have it, we can meet it. So really tailoring it.
We do a lot with social media.
Yeah.
We do a
You
lot.
do.
We get a lot of response that way.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot done. What probably is part of the thing is that people are very busy and they're doing their life, and it's easy to order a book from Amazon, and they have the money to order the book from Amazon, and that's good. But they could have gotten it from the library, and do they know that that's what they get for living here? And
So
do they get that little spark of, I could go to the library and take those books out and meet some people who are taking books out, or be exposed to other ideas that I didn't think I was going in there looking for. That's one of the really cool things about a library,
Yeah.
that
I know from
would be good to
experience that
advertise.
in previous jobs, people who volunteered at the library, who had been long-time library users, would be first taken on a very instructive tour by the volunteer coordinator. And those people would say, I didn't know you had this. And these are people who come to the library every week, but they go straight to their one thing, and they do that. And then there's people who see it and say, I have access to that at work, I have access to that at school. We're competing with a lot of other things. So I know that Eric has been working on this, and this is really something that we agree with you that we should be doing, but so maybe some sort of a report update on what we're doing. And
Another way of responding or putting it out is, we recognize with the surveys that are done every year that the community values and enjoys libraries. And we've been responsive to your desires. Here's what we're doing. You may not even know about it.
yes, that's true. That's right.
My wife didn't even know until last night that we have museum passes.
Well, what's impressed me for the last 9 years, they do this survey. What are the most important things? Fire, police, libraries.
Well, and if you go look, people are very satisfied that they live in Palo Alto and they know they have those libraries there. You can go to the library if you want to go to the library. There's a library. There are 5 libraries, and that's great. But many people, I think, might be too busy to go.
Well, the other thing is with the internet access. While people in Palo Alto, believe me, are using the internet, they've been doing it for decades, they don't necessarily realize all of the things you can do at the library site on the internet. And the discussion we had tonight was very, very informative.
Yes.
And that's the sort of thing that will get people, oh, I didn't realize we could go to that site and get this information and download it from the library. Wow! That's what we have to get out.
Yeah, okay, so I believe that you guys took an action to think about providing us with yet another presentation. Is that right? And you're going to decide when.
Okay.
I could
think.
I could combine it with the item that I have on there to present, which is about retention.
Oh.
And
In the spring.
In the
28th.
spring. Yeah. Okay. Terrific. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I'll
Get
second.
out of here before 9 o'clock.
Should we vote? Aye.
30 seconds. Bye.
All right.
Thank you
Good.
very much.